Welcome to tonight's live stream. I'm going to get started in a minute. I just need to let everybody know the stream is going on right now, and I will get started right after that. Okay, everybody knows that the live stream is going on, and I'm going to go into tonight's topic. Now, tonight's topic is going to be about undercover goths. Now, in the goth subculture, most people believe that most goths dress in black. They wear a lot of makeup, they wear a lot of eyeliner, and they wear these very dark and spooky attire. However, when it comes down to a lot of those people who believe those ideas, they don't see all of the other undercover goths in the goth subculture because not all goths wear black all the time. Now, a lot of people express their darkness by wearing black all year round. However, there are other people who don't wear black but still enjoy the music, which is the foundation of the subculture, and they wear regular clothes. And you wouldn't know that they were darkly inclined or that they were a part of the goth subculture by the way they are dressed. Now, that's one of the things that people use to identify goths. However, it's not the one indicator because you have people at different phases in the scene. So trying to identify again someone just by wearing black clothes is not an indicator. Now, when it comes down to a lot of undercover goths, they are at different stages in the scene. You might have in the beginning a lot of baby bats who are into the music of the subculture, and they are just discovering the fashion and they're just trying to figure out what their aesthetic is going to look like. So a lot of times you'll have kids who will dress in regular clothes and they're just finding and discovering the music, and they're also just discovering their style. So they wouldn't appear to be a goth, but they are starting out in the scene and they're just starting to figure out and discover what they want their identity to be. So that is one group that I would consider a group of undercover goths, a lot of the baby bats just starting out. And in that baby bat group, you have also a lot of kids who are teenagers and they're still living in their mother's house. So when they're living in their mother's house, a lot of times you have people who have deeply religious parents or deeply strict parents. And because they have deeply religious and strict parents, what they will do is they will dress normal when they are at home with their parents, not so they won't upset them. And then when they go to school, they will change into goth attire. So a lot of times people have to play like a superhero with a secret identity where they are carrying clothes with them, or they put clothes in their locker so that they can dress in the goth attire they want to wear. So they wind up hiding that attire from their parents so that they can express themselves the way they want to express themselves. So that's another group of kids out there who are undercover goths. They can't wear the clothes that they want in the scene. So not the scene, but in regular life with their strict parents. So they have to go out and find a way to wear those clothes because in public school. So they'll go to school, carry their clothes in a bag and their makeup in a bag and change their clothes. And then right around the time to leave, they will then change their clothes as well. Now, another group of undercover goths are what people would call are people who have to go to work. And a lot of times when you're out here and you have a job, a lot of these jobs have a dress code. So you can't really go out here and dress in a full goth attire at these jobs. So a lot of times, a lot of guys, like if you're working someplace like a civil service, like a transit job where they require you to wear a uniform, you can't go out here and change your clothes to fit your goth aesthetic. You have to wear the uniform that the company requires you to wear. So a lot of times guys will be going to work making that good money on something like a transit job, and they'll go out here, make that money 5 to 6 days a week if they get the overtime, and then they will take that money and they will buy goth attire that they will wear on the weekends and their evenings if they can get that time off. So that's another undercover goth that you wouldn't know about, and you wouldn't know it based on looking at their aesthetic. You would look at their aesthetic, you would see their clothes, and you would think, oh, that guy is not a goth, or that guy is not darkly inclined, but that person might actually be darkly inclined or goth, but they just can't wear that attire at the job that they have because they want to stack those chips and make that paper. So they're willing to make that compromise in order to stack those chips and make that paper. So they're willing to do that to get that work. And then you have another group which is related to work, which is what many goths in the subculture call the weekenders, which are just like the kids who are making the sacrifice to get the money that they want. They are out here, and these weekenders, again, they have college degrees, they have very good jobs, but those jobs have dress codes. And because those jobs have dress codes, they are not Monday through Friday dressing in traditional attire, but on the weekends, they put on their goth attire so they can go to places like goth clubs or the coffee houses or goth events, and they often do this also on the evenings as well. So you'll have people who will work a 9 to 5 job, and they will dress in the traditional Wall Street white shirt, red tie, nice dress shoes. But when Friday night comes along, that's when they break out their goth attire and they put on things that fit their goth aesthetic. So that's another group of undercover goths. And again, you really can't judge a goth by their appearance because a lot of times not everybody in the subculture can look and dress like many of what you see of the goth YouTubers dressing like when they're making videos. A lot of times when you see a lot of the goth YouTubers who are making videos, they get dressed up just to make the video, but they're not dressing and looking like that every day because that would be a bit much to do something like go to a store or go shopping to the supermarket to do errands. So they don't look like that every day. And people, they think that when they don't see people like that there's something wrong with them, but that's just people living their lives. And that's another thing people need to understand, that goths are people too. They just have a darker view of the world around them. So people thinking that, oh, he dresses like that in all black every day. Now, a lot of times, some people just put together an outfit for an event, or they put together an outfit for a video, but they're not doing that all the time every day. It would be not practical because when you have to go to places like work, or you have to go out here and do errands, it's just not practical for you to be dressed like that all the time. And people will see a guy wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and they'll think, oh, that guy is not goth. But what he is goth is his heart and his connection to the music. Now, another group of undercover goths are people who I gotta think about. A lot of times, again, it also relates to work and school, and it also relates to family. Is I'm gonna take a minute to look at the chats. What's going on, Bot Boy? Tricks Manifest, what's up? Corey, what is the most overrated talking point in media? I don't know. I think Trump would be the most overrated talking point in media. I just get tired of hearing about him. What's going on, Alex? Mashonda, what's going on? But let me get back to this undercover goths. And again, undercover goths are, you wouldn't see them. A lot of times you'll see people, they'll just be wearing regular clothes, and aesthetically they wouldn't look goth, but they may know things about the scene. So again, you can't judge people in the subculture based on their clothes in a lot of cases, because a lot of times what you see isn't there, because you have, again, people who are at different phases in their lives in the scene. Like you have the baby bats who are just discovering the scene, just discovering their style, and they're just trying to figure out how they want to dress, what type of style they want to dress in, and what type of look they want to have. So they may still have a lot of older clothes that they want to wear, or their parents they've bought for them, so they want to, wear those clothes until they wear them out. So they'll still be wearing a lot of their regular clothes as they're still trying to figure out their style, and not just going to throw out all their old stuff overnight. Again, this is something that people do as they grow into it, because it is a lifestyle. Thank you, Mashonda, for the donation. I really appreciate it. If you guys want to donate to the super chat, you can do that as well, or you can donate to my Cash App. I'm going to leave a link to. And a lot of them, they're still trying to figure out what they want to wear, or how they want it to wear it, or how they want things to fit. So you would see maybe a young kid or a teenager, they're still incorporating a lot of their old stuff into it. They're not just going to go out there and buy an all black wardrobe and have that, and then just make that their wardrobe. They're going to still be putting on regular stuff. I'm going to leave a link to my Patreon. And they're still trying to figure out what they want to wear. So a lot of people think, oh, they're not goth yet, but no, they're just starting, and they're trying to figure things out. And again, I will repeat the point again about a lot of kids who grow up in deeply religious homes, because a lot of kids who grow up in Christian homes, they are told by their parents they can't dress in goth attire, but they are listening to the music. And so in some homes, it's so strict that even the parents won't let you listen to the music. So a lot of kids have to do things, especially in very strict Christian homes. They have to sneak around and find ways to listen to the music, like when they go to the library and they're online, or if they have to go to a friend's house and they listen to the music there, because some parents are so strict that they literally try to control everything that you do. So a lot of people, they keep their whole connection to the subculture underground for a long period of time before. Trex, why is it a so-called sin for a black person to be goth? Well, I go into that in the novel Spellbound, and in Spellbound I talk about how the black community is a fascist state, and when it comes down to the black community, they don't like to hear or see certain narratives because when it comes down to a lot of black people, they want to fit into a a black box that is acceptable to white people. So they want everybody to follow a certain narrative that makes white people feel comfortable. And that's why we don't see, so that's why it's a sin for black people to be called a goth, because when it comes down to black people, they want to be acceptable to white people, and they want to fit into those boxes that will allow them to fit into white people's smooth world. So they would rather be a pro-black, a gangster, a hood rat, a strong, independent woman. And this is a culture that is taught to many black people by black women because they want to make sure that their kids are safe and secure, and they want them to fit into these roles that will make them safe and secure. And being a part of the goth subculture is something that is out of those boxes, and it is something that would put a black person at risk. But usually it's not white people who are upset about black people looking like that and being a part of the scene. It is mostly black people because they fear a diversity of ideas and a diversity of thought. Corey, I have been a writer for over 30 years, and I have been a publisher for 10 years this year. And that's how long I've been writing. I've been writing actually since I was 9 years old, and I returned to writing at 16, and I have not stopped ever since. So I've been writing for a real long time. I mean, I've written over 60 books in that time, and I have been working at this for a very long time. I didn't know that. From what I heard, a lot of Black Goths, Dwayne, that they would um, that some wear natural hair, some wear perms, and it varies from person to person. It's very diverse. I've seen a lot of Black Goths, Mayhem. I've seen a lot of them online. I've seen them in real life, and I've seen them all in my life. I mean, if you go to YouTube, you will find 4 or 5 of them. I talk to several on the regular, like Jessin King. She has a channel. I talk to her on the regular, and I talk to many Black Goths. I am George regularly watches my videos and watches my streams. I have I know numerous Black Goths as I was writing the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, like Spellbound, which explored Matilda's baby bat years, Legendary Mad Matilda, and Spinsterella. So all 3 of these books are on Amazon, but as I was writing and promoting them, I got to know a lot of Black Goths and a lot of Black people in the scene, and they have been extremely helpful in promoting the books of the Spinsterella trilogy. And that's where I got a lot of understanding about the undercover goth and people thinking that everybody and trying to shatter the stereotype of this whole idea of your goths just being people who dress in black. When, again, when you understand the overall subculture, you know that there are people who are connected to the subculture and people who are actually part of the subculture who are goth and are part of the scene, but they can't dress that way, again, for a variety of reasons all the time. But they find ways to express themselves and show their darkness in ways that are more subtle than just wearing all black all the time. So that's another point I wanted to get into as related to the undercover goth, because when it comes down to the whole corporate setting, you may have these strict dress rules, but a lot of people, they find ways to skirt around them, like I'm doing right now by wearing this dress shirt that I picked up from Paul Frederick a couple of weeks ago. This is a type of business shirt that a lot of undercover goths would go out here and wear. They would probably put this with a red tie, and they would express their darkness by doing things like slipping these things in on Casual Friday, or slipping things in as related to their jewelry. And they would do things on the low. And unless you knew about the look or the aesthetic, what would happen is you wouldn't really pay it much attention, but they know how to do it on the low, And it's those subtle things you would have to really pick up on it to identify it. But a lot of people find ways to do this, especially if you're working certain jobs like civil service, like you're working transit, or you're working in work environments like teaching. Again, people express themselves by doing things like putting on jewelry, like putting things in their hair, or even the coat that they wear going to work. They will find ways to decorate that with buttons of different bands. And some people, again, they're out and about, they'll wear the t-shirts of the bands, and that's another indicator. And you wouldn't know it by looking at it. You would just think, oh, he just likes that band. But in actuality, he's a part of this, he or she is a part of the subculture, and they are showing they are a part of the subculture by wearing that attire. So as an indicator to themselves and a way to express themselves. So they're wearing that attire to let them to express their darkness, but they're not doing it in a way that draws attention to themselves. So they will do that on the low, but a lot of people, they will sit there and they will go, oh, the guys who are dressing goth are the guys with the all black. But somebody will just do something like put on a Sisters of Mercy t-shirt or a Bauhaus t-shirt or a Susie and the Banshees t-shirt, or even some of the newer bands that most people don't know about. And that will be the way they will express their darkness, and most people won't even notice it. Or they will, again, go out here and buy jewelry from different companies that most goths know are out here. And if I would know those companies, but the other people, most traditional people, wouldn't know those companies. They wouldn't know what to look for. And so they will go out here and they will buy that. And a lot of times, undercover goths, or another way you can identify them is with a lot of times from their smartphones and what they play on their smartphones. And a lot of times it'll be, because the subculture is a music-based one, that's where you'll see where everything is, because they'll put all their music on their smartphone or their, for us old dudes, iPods, and that's where it'll all be. So they'll be wearing the business suit and tie, but they'll be out here with their music, and that will be another big indicator. You see somebody with a cell phone, and they're playing goth music, and that'll be a major indicator to them being a part of the subculture. And that's something that people wouldn't notice, but it's something somebody would do in order to go out here and survive. And that's what being undercover is all about. You want a lot of people in the scene, they want to be able to survive. They want to be able to make a living, and they want to be able to go out here and work in the regular world, in the real world. So they have to go out here. And in some ways, it's sort of like Clark Kent and Superman, where you have your regular everyday persona, and then you have your goth attire. And it's like having a secret identity, and you're dressed and acting one way in order to make a living in the world. But then when you get into the scene, you can be the person you really are. And that's the way it is for some people in the scene. And that's the way they have to do it in order to survive. Now, there are other people who are part of the scene, and they have a full aesthetic, they have a full look. And again, a lot of times that's because they have their own businesses and they have a way to make a living for themselves. So a lot of people who are fully dressed in goth attire all the time, if they do that, they have their own businesses, they have their own way to make a living, they have their own way to make money. So they can go out here and dress in goth attire, dress in all black, and not have any worries about things economically, but they can go out here and be able to express themselves the way they want to express themselves. But for a lot of youngsters out here, They rely on their parents, and a lot of people have not gotten on their feet to the point where they can make that living. So that's why they have to go undercover um, for their everyday, because they can't afford to get put out of their house or lose a very good job. So that's why they're going undercover. And this is a very controversial issue for a lot of people in the scene as related to the undercover goth, because some people think that the person who doesn't dress goth or have a goth look isn't really goth. But I believe that goth is something that is in your heart. It's something that's a part of you. It's that view of the world, that perception of darkness, that perception of seeing light in darkness, and that perception of seeing things from that different perspective. It's something that is inside of you. And while you may not look the part, you may have those values and those ideas, and that is what makes a person goth. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. They think that it's something external, but it is something internal. And it is something internal that people need to really understand, that, again, people, they it's what makes this, that dark view, that makes them a goth, not just their attire. Because again, people are at different phases in their life. Like the baby bats are in that exploratory phase. Then you have some of the weekenders who are working these jobs with rigid uniforms. And then you have many of the corporate goths who are trying to go out here and make that living so that they can maintain that middle class lifestyle. So they are willing to make a few compromises to keep having that living. So I see them all as part of the scene, and all make efforts to contribute to the scene. So I understand where they're coming from as undercover goths, and I don't think less of any of them, because goth is goth as I see it. And again, it is about the heart of the person and the values they have. That is what makes them a goth, and that's what makes them a part of the lifestyle, part of the subculture. And that's something that should be the most important thing. I'm going to go through the chats again. Do I have any tips for writing for yourself, Corey? I did a whole video on writing just a couple of weeks ago. I don't know, it was last week. I did a whole video on writing, and I will bring that up right now. This is the video that could really help you. Okay. Just 1 second. And I explained my entire writing process to a one viewer who wanted it. And I'm going to leave a link to it in the chat, and you can look at that, Corey. That's the one right now. I put that there. It explains my entire writing process. And you will be able to see many of the tips I give for a writer like yourself in that video. I have a couple more. You just have to search it out in the channel, and you'll be able to get them all. And you can also learn about my writing from picking up a book like Spellbound, that's on Amazon.com. There you'll see a lot of my techniques and my style. And I'm going to continue to go on through this. Well, Blade is a goth character. I mean, the entire Blade movie tracks is basically a goth movie. It's as I see it, it's a part of the goth. It should be a part of the goth subculture, because it shows us black from a dark perspective, and shows us the black perspective of things dark. So I always saw Blade as a goth movie, and many black goths, they want to see Blade be a part of the canon the same way The Crow is seen as a part of the canon of the goth subculture. It's one of those essential movies. A lot of people will sit there and they will say The Crow is a goth movie, but I believe the Blade trilogy needs to be placed in the goth subculture as essential viewing because it shows us darkness from a black perspective. So that's something that I believe a lot of people in the subculture need to take a look at is the Blade movies, because the Blade movies show us a perspective of darkness from a black perspective. And you can look at that whole movie and look at all the themes in it, and you can see a lot of the goth undertones and goth aesthetics in that movie, and how it shows how a black man can be very goth. And it's something that, again, people in the subculture need to be talking about because it should be essential viewing for any black person who is a part of the scene. And that's another thing. A lot of people look at, again, they look at Blade, and he's what he is. He has a very dark perspective, and um he's a black, and everybody thinks he's just a superhero. But again, when you look at it, you'll see a lot of the dark aesthetics, dark undertones. And again, I call it a goth movie, and I think more goths need to call Blade a goth movie. But when it comes down to the undercover goths, again, you wouldn't recognize them, but they're out there, and people, they only judge by appearance. But if you start to talk to a person who is working every day, that's when you'll start to see a lot of the undercover goths, and they're out there, and people, they won't recognize them, but I can recognize them by little tiny things because I'm always noticing little details, things like rings, things like jewelry, things like hairpins, things like jackets and buttons. These are the things that will really identify someone. And sometimes you can get identified by the music on your phone again, but a lot of times people, they'll sit there and they'll go, oh, the only goths you see are like the ones you see on YouTube, and that's not the case at all. I mean, not every goth wears all black. Some people do wear blue jeans. I mean, back in the 80s, people did wear blue jeans. People wore blue jeans with their boots, and they also wore things like tartans or certain colors. So these are things people would wear to make their outfits pop, and they were things that people didn't really notice, but they would wear them, and nobody thought most of it. Today they get upset over things like pastel goth, but people were wearing a lot. Some people were wearing colors in the 80s as part of their outfits, and that's something most people don't know. They just sit there and they don't know everything, and they don't want to go seek out the information so that they can learn a bit more about the scene and the history of the scene. So the whole thing is they're thinking that it's all one way, and that's not the way it is at all. I mean, gonna go through the chats again. Yeah, that's true, Trex. It is ironic how sagging pants are acceptable, but goth clothing is not. And yeah, that's something that is quite troubling in the black community, is that you have black people who believe that wearing sagging pants is perfectly fine, and they will go out here and believe that because Madison Avenue and Hollywood put that image in front of them. But if you were to take a non-traditional image like goth, they would say that that's acting white. They would say that that's something white people do, when again, black people have been a part of the goth scene since the 70s, but because the mainstream media doesn't promote it, what they do is believe that that's acting white, when I can go and get you several articles and several pictures from Propaganda Magazine to show you black people who were part of the scene from minute one. Yeah, yeah, tracks that SJW diversity isn't diversity, because the real diversity we see is the ones of diversity of thought, and we don't really get that with the SJWs out here. They're the ones who will bury things like the Black Goth subculture, and they will bury it because it doesn't fit their narrative and it doesn't fit into their smooth world. So those are things. That's why we don't see a lot of goth images in mainstream media with black people in them, is because people in mainstream media want to keep it buried. And again, that ties into why a lot of people go undercover, especially in places like the black community. A lot of people love the subculture, but they're afraid to express themselves because they're afraid of getting bullied, they're afraid of getting harassed. And that's another reason why a lot of people go undercover, is because they're afraid that if they express themselves, they may get bullied, harassed, or even physically assaulted. Because when you dress in a goth aesthetic, it draws a lot of attention to you, and a lot of the attention you get is negative attention. So a lot of people, for their safety, especially in communities like the black community, they will go out here and try to find ways to do it in a quiet fashion, because while they love the music and they love the scene, they don't want to be attacked by people in their communities. They don't want to be physically assaulted or attacked or verbally abused, or in some cases, for a lot of younger kids, they don't want to get put out of their houses by their parents, because you have people who buy into this idea that goth is of the devil and that goth is satanic. But anybody like myself who has done the research can tell you that goth has no connection to any sort of religious institution. It is just a celebration of things dark and seeing the light inside of things that are dark, but there is no connection to anything satanic or anything religious at all. And when it comes down to, especially the black community, you will run into a lot of people who will sit there and say, oh, goth is of the devil. And again, this is why the kids get scared. And this is why they will go out here and just listen to the music undercover, but they won't go out here and actively go out here and put on goth clothing. Or if they do put on clothing, it will be something, again, very quiet, that if you knew people in the subculture, you could identify those things. But if you were a common person, it would just go over your head. And again, that's what I would do with a lot of my style, is I find ways to slip it in under the radar, because if you want to go out here and do business, you have to find ways to do it in a very quiet fashion. So a lot of guys who are undercover, again, they will go out here, they will put on a pair of black jeans, or sometimes they will put on a gray shirt or a red shirt, or they'll go out here and they'll put on, again, a band shirt with some jeans, and they'll put on some boots, and that will be a look for them that allows them to put on their darkness. Or they will find one piece of clothing where they can express their darkness that they can wear every day. Like some people, they will go out and get themselves a leather jacket or a jacket that they're wearing outside during the fall, winter, and spring. And this jacket or this coat will have a lot of band buttons on it, and they'll have patches on it. And again, if you were in the scene, you will know what these bands are, you will know what these buttons mean, but other people won't know what they mean. Or in some cases, people will use jewelry like onks to go out here, and it'll be something very quiet. And some girls, they will put it in their makeup. They will do it in a very quiet fashion. It won't be super outrageous, but they will do things with their makeup. But you wouldn't, again, know it unless you were a part of the scene, what they were doing. Trex, yeah, black goths do prove that there are different variations of blackness. And from all that I've seen from numerous black people who are part of the scene, they all have their own style and their own distinct aesthetic. So no two black goths are alike. And most of the black goths I've seen, again, have their own view, their own style, and they come up with their aesthetic based on what they want to present, or things related to their personal lives or their personal experiences. So their aesthetic comes from inside of them, and it comes from the things that they come from their personal life. And Corey, well, when it comes down to black feminists, they're just following it because they want to fit in with white people and they want white acceptance and they want to be like white women. So that's why they are following the feminist movement. Now, they know it's not for their well being, but again, they want that social acceptance, sort of like what black people want in the black community. They want to fit into that black box that's acceptable. And being a feminist is one of those things that fits in that box that's acceptable to black box that's acceptable to white people. It's one of those personas that allow them to fit into that white world. So that's why they take that on. And it also allows them to have power in that world. And again, these are people who they make a lot of trouble for people who are a part of the black goth subculture because again, they want to fit into that black box that's acceptable. These are spellbound people and they want to fit in, and if you don't fit into their smooth world, they make efforts to try to destroy you. And that's one of those things that they are one of the major bullies that are a part of the black goth subculture. Gordon, that's a very, very good question. Yes, you can be true to God and while being goth, because your belief in Jesus Christ has nothing to do with goth. And when it comes down to the church is about religion, and religion is a man-made construct. Religion has nothing to do with the living God or a relationship with God. And again, when it comes down to the church, it's all about making people follow a set of man-made rules that allow them to conform and allow them to fit into the smooth world. It is not about them being who they are. So when it comes down to the church, it is about promoting a idea of religion. And again, they need all of the people in the church to follow that religion because they are agreeing with the pastor and not with God, who said, "Come as you are," because he is about the heart of people. And when it comes down to the heart of people, he judges them by the content of their character, not the their overall aesthetic. So it's about what they believe in their heart. But the church out here, they only judge people by their appearance. And again, a lot of people who judge by their appearance oftentimes wind up disappointed because when you have a lot of people who have a darker view of the world, like people in the goth subculture, a lot of those people, they believe in God, they believe in Jesus. However, it's very discouraging when you have people out here from the church who are judgmental because those people wind up alienating people by their behavior. Because when it comes down to many of these people who are part of the church, what they do is they judge people in the subculture, not knowing that they are out here bearing thorns and briars instead of going out here and bearing the fruit of the Spirit. Because people who believe in the living God, they understand that Jesus came to all people, especially the sinners, and he didn't treat them badly the way many of these Christian people do. He treated them kindly, he treated them very, very compassionately, and people came to him because he showed love to them. And that's something that we don't see in the church as related to people in the goth subculture. And I'm very deeply disappointed to see that. Yeah, Trex, people do have a lot of negative connotations towards people in the goth subculture, and they perpetuate a lot of stereotypes on people who are goth in the media, like the cynical person, the depressed person, the person who has mental health issues. And I've talked to many people on the scene about this, and it's something that we have to fight against because these stereotypes, they promote ideas about people in the subculture that aren't true. Now, I recently saw a meme on Instagram of a goth girl, and they talked about how she was into BDSM, and I found that to be quite troubling because most of the women who I've talked to in the scene are very conservative. And while they have this dark aesthetic, people want to put a sexual connotation on it, and they want to project sexual deviancy on women in the scene. When, if you talk to many women in the scene are extremely conservative in their values and conservative in their beliefs, and they are dressing this way again because they are expressing their darkness, not because of anything sexual. And the reason why people project things on women in the subculture as sexual is because many of Madison Avenue and Hollywood promote these ideas that goth women are sexually promiscuous and, moreover, sexual deviants. And they promote the idea that goth men are gay. So these are, or they're mentally ill, or they're into things like cutting themselves and committing suicide or drug use. And this is something that people in the subculture have to actively get out here and get in front of, because the only way a stereotype can be perpetuated is unless we produce counter media. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the 3 books of the Spinsterella trilogy, was to go out here and create a counter narrative, because I knew a lot of people in the subculture and I knew about the stereotypes out here. So I wanted to create literature that presented a positive image of people in the subculture, like Spellbound, which gives you a balanced picture of what draws somebody to the subculture and the scene, that they have dark views, and shows you that there's something positive about being dark and having a dark perspective. Legendary Mad Matilda, which shows you the adolescent phase of the goth subculture and the start of Matilda Crowley's career after she graduates school. And Spinsterella, which shows you a positive picture of a girl in a romance who happens to be an African-American goth. So with my literature, I wanted to make efforts to present a positive picture of the subculture, a positive picture of people in the subculture, and show you the humanity of people in the subculture. Because when it comes down to the goth subculture, again, there are just so many stereotypes out there, and it's those stereotypes that drive people undercover and make them want to go out here and try to find ways to cover their darkness and not be comfortable with it, and not be comfortable with themselves. Do I consider myself to be a goth? No, I am a darkly inclined black man. I mean, if I had known a little bit more about it in '89, I probably would have become a goth back in '89, but I didn't learn much about the scene until the mid '90s. And back then I was like darkly inclined. I was into dark stuff, but I never really took that step. But I was aware of the subculture. I listened to a lot of the music growing up, and it was a part of my everyday life in the 80s and the early 90s. And again, if it was '89 and I had taken a few more steps, I probably would be a goth right now. But I'm darkly inclined, and I support the subculture and the scene, and I want to present a positive image, and I want to promote the subculture to brothers and sisters so that they can feel comfortable about being a part of the scene, learn more about the scene, and they can learn that there is a place for them in the scene, and there's always been a place for them, and that goth isn't something white. It has always been something for everyone, and it's been one of the most inclusive scenes out there since its inception. What are my thoughts on biracial goths? The Matilda Crowley character in Spellbound is biracial, so if you read Spellbound, you will see my thoughts on a biracial goth, because the entire Spinsterella trilogy, Matilda Crowley is a biracial woman who is in the goth subculture, and it's about her struggles of being biracial. And that was one of the things that motivated her to become a part of the subcultures, because she saw the darkness in the Black community. She saw how Black people were spellbound and trying to fit in that black box that's acceptable to white people, and how she was torn between these two worlds, and how the goth subculture gave her a gateway to a place where she could be herself. So if you pick up Spellbound, you will learn all about my views on biracial goths and African American goths, because the entire book is about the African American goth subculture. I appreciate the support, Corey. You will enjoy the books of the Spinsterella trilogy. I mean, I went in depth doing the research. I talked to a lot of goths to put this trilogy together, because I believe it was important for Black people to see African American goths, African American goth subculture, and I wanted to give people a perspective on the subculture so that they wouldn't have these stereotypes going around, and to refute a lot of these stereotypes. Well, off the corner, a lot of people don't know about the Black goth They don't know about the goth subculture. A lot of people haven't been exposed to it, except for maybe Paulie Perrette's Abby character on NCIS, or if you're older like me, the goths you saw on Jenny Jones, where people were trying to make fun of them and mock them. Now, that's the only way. Or you saw maybe other goth characters like Sam from Manson from Danny Phantom. But a lot of people, they weren't really exposed to the subculture, and they really didn't get to know the people. And that's one of the reasons why I do the goth videos and the goth live streams, is so that people can get to know the scene, get to understand it a bit better. And when it comes down to Black people, understand what motivates somebody to become a part of the subculture. So a lot of people have been asked, they said it's been a long time since I did this type of live stream, and they really love these kind of live streams. First goth live stream I did was extremely popular, and another one I did about dealing with introversion and anxiety was extremely popular. But this was one I had on the back burner for a while. I wanted to do this one because I knew a lot of kids out there who, they're on the fringe, or there's a lot of working class goths out there, and they are undercover because of various reasons. And I wanted them to understand, I wanted people in the scene to understand why this person was undercover. And I wanted them to understand that they are undercover for reasons to be able to do things in their lives. And it's not because they're trying to hide from the scene, but they're just trying to survive and make that living. If they're older or if they're younger, they're just trying to go out here and stay in their parents' home and not have to deal with a lot of pain and suffering by being homeless. They're just making a small compromise so that they can have a better life in the future. That's a stereotype, Corey, that people have about goths, about goths being drug addicts, and that's not the case at all. Most goths I run into, they're not drug addicts. They're not into anything like that. I've only run into 2 goths on YouTube who have ever taken drugs. 98% of the goths I've run into are not drug users. A lot of them are hard working class people. So most of the goths I run into, they are just regular people like you and me. So they just sit, they're really chill people, really relaxed people, and they're just very introverted. A lot of them are introverts. They stay to themselves, and a lot of them are toy collectors and comic fans like myself, because I've seen them at Comic Cons when I would go to Comic Con. So they have a big connection to the world of comics, sci-fi, fantasy, manga, anime, and even pro wrestling. So they're into a lot of the things I'm into, and the goth scene has a very big connection to the collector world of comics, sci-fi, fantasy, manga, anime, and wrestling. So the subculture has a major connection to a lot of the businesses I'm in, and a lot of the hobbies I'm in. So I'm aware of it, and again, I want people to get a better understanding of things because I gotten to know a lot of people in the scene, and I know that they're really great people, really nice people, really friendly people, and really cool people. So I want to try to shatter a lot of those stereotypes out here as related to the scene and the people of the scene, because it's the people of the scene who make the music, which is the foundation, and we have to show the humanity of the people so that people won't go out here and create stereotypes about the subculture. Yeah, yeah, Mayhem. They are a lot of people in the scene are into wrestling, and they're very much into wrestling. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why Sting went with the whole Crow look, but and then you had Edge and Gangrel and Christian back in the days as the Brood. That was all connected to the goth subculture as well. But a lot of goths are into, again, wrestling, anime, comics, sci-fi. That all those scenes connect directly with the goth subculture, and they are really, a lot of people do not understand that connection, but I understand that connection because, again, I've been a part of the comic book world for over 30 years. So I've seen them all the time, so I know about it. Wicca, there are a lot of, when it comes down to Wicca and the witchcraft, there are goths who practice Wicca. However, it is not a goth thing. When it comes down, again, goth, it is not a religious thing. And there are goths who practice Wicca and work with tarot cards, but it's not all goths. Again, we have a lot of goths who are Christians. We have a lot of goths who are Muslims. We have a lot of goths who are Jewish, and all of those group people in the subculture they are goth because of their dark perspective, but there is no religious aspects to it. So there are goths who practice Wicca, but that varies from person to person. Well, Corey, the more you learn, the fog will come off your glass. You can get through those fog glasses. So all it takes is you learning about different cultures, learning about different people, and that's how you will change your perception of the world. So that's one of the things I try to do with the SJS Direct imprint, is change people's perceptions of African Americans, because there's a lot of stereotypes out there about Black people, a lot of false concepts about Black people. And that was one of my missions with the SJS Direct imprint, was to create positive stories about the Black experience, diversify the African American experience in the African American book market, and try to open people up so that they can see Black people from different cultures and different experiences, like Black people in the goth subculture. No, Dwayne, Oda Feather, when it comes down to goths, it varies from person to person. So you might have a goth who is into Wicca, you might have a goth who is a Christian, you might have a goth who is a Jew, you might have a goth who is a Muslim, and it varies from person to person. It just depends on who you interact with and who you have experiences with, but it varies from person to person. So I've watched over like 10, 15,000 hours of goth YouTube videos, and I've gotten to know a lot of people's on the scene. So I know that it varies from person to person. Acune, I have to listen to that. I haven't heard of Praise for Rain, but I'll have to listen to it. I've listened to a lot of music, but I haven't really gotten that far. I have to get further into it, as varied to certain bands, because I know a couple of Cure songs, but I haven't heard that one yet. So I'll have to get back to you on my interpretation of that song. That's one I haven't heard yet, but I heard a lot of Sisters of Mercy. I've heard a lot of Susie. Heard a couple of London After Midnights. So I have to get back to you on that one. I probably do that after this stream when I'll get into that song. But there was some like that stuck to me, like London After Midnight's um Where Good Girls Go to Die. That's what inspired legendary Mad Matilda, was London After Midnight's When Good Girls Go to Die. And Spellbound was inspired by Susie and the Banshees' Spellbound. So I have been listening to the music, and I I really want the music to be a core foundation to it. I'm working on a vampire novel right now called Eternal Night, which is going to be a goth vampire story set in the SJS Direct universe. And I'm going to be listening. I'm going to be back to listening to goth music, in addition to R&B and hip hop, and I try to fuse them all together, so that when I do my stories, you can see, the goth subculture from a black perspective, and you can see the darkness from a black perspective. So that's something I'm doing, and I'll check that song out as part of it. What's going on, Benny? Glad to see you here. Yeah, pro-blacks, they want to be the center of blackness, and that's why they're always talking about how they hate the white man, because when it comes down to the pro-black, he loves the white man. And when it comes down to the pro-black, in many cases, they want to try to eliminate people in the goth subculture, because they want to be that center that gets the attention and approval of white people. So they will be the ones who a lot of times talk about how goths are acting white, and all black goths are sellouts, when in actuality, they are the ones who are the selling out. Benny G, again, glad to see you here. How'd your operation go? I hope you're okay. Um, and I hope you're feeling better, because I'm glad to hear that, Benny. I'm glad to hear your operation went good, and I'm hoping that you get better. Well, Corey, when it comes down to the pro-black, they are all about being the number one in white people's eyes. They don't really want diversity. They don't want us to see diversity of thought or diversity of ideas, and they don't want to see things like the goth subculture grow. And these are the type of people, again, who bully and harass a lot of the kids who are darkly inclined, who want to be a part of the scene. What they do is they go out here and they bully and harass people, saying that they're acting white, they're Uncle Toms, they're sellouts. And that forces a lot of kids who want to be a part of the subculture to go out here and not believe that they can be a part of the subculture. And that's one of the things I have an issue with when it comes down to the pro-black, is they go out here and they want to make their version of black be the only version of black. And that's what really annoys me about them, because they don't want us to see a diversity of ideas or a diversity of thought. And these hypocrites will talk about how the black person who wants to be a part of the goth subculture is acting white, when in actuality, they're out here with a lot of white women, and a lot of them actually pursue relationships with white women. And that, to me, is hypocrisy, because at least the person who is black, who wants to be a part of the scene, is being honest. It's about their expression of darkness. It is about their being comfortable and secure with themselves, and it is about them discovering their own identity as a person in the subculture, and them discovering what the music that they like and the aesthetic that they want to have. So that's what they want to do. But when it comes down to the pro-black, what he will do is tell you that you are being white for wanting to be the black you want to be, and that the only way for you to be black is to fit into that box that is acceptable to white people. And that's what I talk about in Spellbound. And in Spellbound, I talk about the darker shade of black. And the darker shade of black is, again, the black identity you create on and live by living life on your terms, and the black identity that allows you to be the black person you want to be. So That's what Spellbound, the core foundation of it is. And in that story, I talk about how the Matilda Crowley character finds her voice, discovers her own identity, and then gets the courage to stand up and speak for herself. And that's something that a lot of the undercover goths have to learn how to do. It's all part of their growth and development, especially for the young baby bats out there, because a lot of the young baby bats, they're afraid to go out here and speak, especially if they come from deeply religious homes, deeply strict homes, and they think that this is something bad. Finding your voice, finding your style, finding your comfort zone, and this is nothing bad. This is actually good because it's going to help you actualize your potential, and it's something that people have to do. And they have to find a constructive way to do it. I mean, you might have to go undercover for a while to get the job that you want or to be able to finish school, but eventually you can go out here and finally be able to express yourself in the way you want to. Wow, Luciano, doing soccer classes. Wow, that's congratulations. That sounds like a lot of challenge. Wow, I didn't know that, Benny, that there was a big group in Botswana. So there's Goths, again, that all ties into Goths being all over the world. And that's something I learned about the Goth subculture is that, yeah, it's international. And Benny telling me about the Goths in Botswana, wow, that's something that everybody, even that surprised me. And I think a lot of the people in the scene, they're going to be glad to hear that there are African women who are into have a goth aesthetic. You got to give me a link to that video because I'm going to take a look at that. I really want to share that with my viewers. But Benny, I got to get a link to that video. I think my viewers would love to see that because you have a lot of these people out here who want to talk about goth is so white. You have that nonsense going on. And here's something to refute that narrative right here. I mean, you have Africans who are part of the scene, and then you've had Muslims and you've had Asians. I mean, I've seen people all over the world in the years I've been doing research on this for the Spinsterella trilogy books. So I know that it's an international subculture, and it's something that people need to see because, again, it's about celebration of darkness, and that can be anyone. So. Kim. That's nice to know, Luciano, that you're learning from an African. But soccer is an international sport, so. But American corporate, they don't want to see certain things, so they're not gonna show you that type of unity or diversity. Because again, when it comes down to the SJW, as long as it fits into a smooth world, he doesn't mind it. Into his smooth world, he doesn't mind it. And if it fits in the stereotypes, he doesn't mind it. And that's another thing that they have a problem with goths is that they don't fit into their smooth world unless they can make these stereotypes where they make the people in the subculture appear to be mentally ill, depressed, down. And that's not what I know from the people I've talked to in the scene. People are people. Thank you, Benny. I will definitely take a look at that. Once the stream is over at about 11:30. So I will definitely take a look at that. And I'm definitely going to try to share that. Okay, Ava, I'm going to post the Cash App once again. I posted it earlier, but I will post it right now. And that's the link to the Cash App right there. And if you're going to donate there, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. But I'm definitely gonna look at this video because yeah, Eva, that's okay. I mean, I started at 10, but usually I stay till about 11:30. Sometimes I stay till midnight. It just depends on the topic. But this was one I had planned to do a while back. I mean, I had told a lot of the guys in the scene that I was going to do Undercover Goths a good couple months ago, but so much stuff kept coming through, and I couldn't get to that topic because I would try to do at least one goth live stream a month, and I'm starting to see the value of doing the goth live streams. Excuse me, because a lot of the goths have left YouTube, and we're seeing a real drought as related to goth content, and that's really sad because there are a lot of kids who want to learn about the scene, and then one of the things that's really irritating for them is that a lot of the content that was here back in 2014, 2015, when I started doing the first book, Spinsterella. I mean, there was like so much content here that there was literally a new video every week from about 25, 30 people. And this is something that has, really died down over the last couple of years, especially with the YouTube adpocalypse, because a lot of the goths, they had small channels and they had gotten their channels demonetized, and that discouraged a lot of people around, I think, 2016, 2017. And I saw like 50% of the goth channels disappear. And then 2017, we saw a lot of goths leaving because they had personal issues. And I'm seeing more and more leaving. And again, I look at the baby bats and they desperately need more content because that's how they learn about the scene. That's how they learn about the music. And we desperately need more content because there are people out here who are eager to learn and they want to learn more about the scene. So that's why I started to do the goth live streams. I just didn't want to just do goth videos because I didn't feel that doing the videos was enough. I mean, people do watch them, but when you do the live streams, that's a great way for people to interact in the chat. I've had a lot of goths interact in the chat with me over the goth live streams, and I've gotten to meet a lot of goths in the live stream. So it's something that a lot of people liked, and I want to continue to do it. And I like doing the heavy topics because that's another thing that I like doing, because a lot of the goth YouTube, they used to do a lot of haul videos and a lot of stuff, unboxings and stuff like that. And I didn't want to do that type of stuff. I mean, it would be weird for a man, 45-year-old man, to be doing an unboxing of shirts. I mean, I was like, I can't do that type of stuff. It's just kind of immature for an older man to do something like that. So I like to do the heavy topics, like dealing with the ones I did about Black Goths, the one I did about shyness and introversion. People love that one. Dealing where I dealt with shyness, introversion, social anxiety. I'm 45, Luciano. I'm going to be 46 in September. I'm an old man, but I like to do the heavier topics because I think that people in the subculture, they can learn from those topics. And a lot of times people are struggling with different things like shyness, introversion, social anxiety, having to go undercover and feeling like they have to hide themselves. And they shouldn't have to hide themselves. But again, people need to understand why that person is doing that. And that's why I do live streams like this, is because I want them to feel and understand that they aren't alone. And I understand why they're going out here and going undercover. And I want other people in the scene to understand why people in the scene who are out here are going undercover and why they aren't feeling free about expressing themselves because they have things going on in their lives, or they're not in a station in their life where they feel safe enough, or they have the economic resources to go out here and express themselves. So some people who are better off economically, they can go out here and usually put on all that full goth attire, or some people, it's part of their business to do that. But a lot of everyday people, they can't really do that because they have responsibilities and obligations that they have to commit to. So that's why you're not going to see them wearing full goth attire every day. And sometimes it's not even practical to wear full goth attire every day because it's not really practical if you want to go to the supermarket or the grocery store. I mean, who wants to put on a full face of makeup to go to a grocery store? Or who wants to put on a full goth outfit to head over to a supermarket to go pick up a frozen pizza. Nobody's going to do that. And I would like to see people, get real about the subculture and understand that, yeah, your favorite goth YouTubers may dress up for a video that they're making or for an Instagram photo or to go out here and promote whatever event they're at, or to go to an event like a Wave Gothic Treffen or a concert. They may dress like that, but in their everyday life, they may go an entire day without wearing makeup, or they may go an entire day in pink pajamas. And I talk about that in Spellbound too. But people think that because a person is goth, that they dress like that and look like that all the time. And they don't understand, that it's a lot that goes into it. And that also is one of the things I'm trying to get people to understand about the undercover goth, is that they may not dress like that. They don't dress like that all the time. And it's something that people need to understand. They just think, like a lot of people in the scene think, if he's not wearing his winkle pickers, he's not a goth, or he's not wearing his new rocks. But you wouldn't wear those to do certain jobs. I mean, you wouldn't wear them in a job like driving a bus, or you wouldn't wear that in an office where you need to have business shoes. So there are different outfits and different looks, and people need to understand, people are trying to find a way to make a living, find a way to survive in this world. And this is all part of living. If you want to express your darkness, you have to find an appropriate way to do it that does not cost you your job or cost you your ability to be able to work someplace and make a living. Luciano, I don't know any goths who consider themselves to be saints. I know that there are elitists, but I don't know anyone who considers themselves to be saints. Usually people who celebrate darkness, a lot of times they know that they're not perfect, and they really just accept what they are. I mean, they have a dark view of things, so they don't see themselves as saints. Usually they just acknowledge who they are, and just out here trying to live. So that's a major part of it. Okay, I'm 42. Wow. Well, I'm almost 46, Luciano. I'm an old man. Wow, that's disturbing, Dwayne. I didn't know that. Um, but I don't know. I don't know that much about Wiccan. I know that there is witchcraft out there, and Wicca and Wiccan. They're into that type. Some people are into that type of stuff, but as a follower of Christ, I don't believe in that stuff. Luciano, yeah, goth. There is a lot of dark humor in the goth subculture, and a lot of dark humor. I mean, if you watch some Danny Phantom episodes, you'll see some jabs at goth humor. If you watch Beetlejuice, you'll see a lot of dark humor. But they promote dark humor because they live on the dark side of life, and in the subculture, making fun of things that are dark. I mean, in Spinsterella, I make fun of a lot of dark things, and the dark side of life. And Spellbound, I talk about the dark side of light skin, things like that. And I make fun of those things. I satirize them, and I do that all the time. I mean, and dark humor is a part of the subculture, and it's a part of things. Goths, yeah, they have their sexuality questioned often because in the subculture, a lot of people are sexually ambiguous. You have women who dress in some ways that are masculine, and then you have some guys who dress who are feminine. Yeah, that happens. Trex, that, yeah, some people do that. I myself, I prefer to dress more masculine, and then there are some women who like to dress feminine, but then there are some people who like to dress androgynous, and it's all about their aesthetic. But aesthetics vary from person to person, so no two people, again, have the same ideas or the same ideas regarding aesthetic. What does a goth do during Halloween? I have no idea. All I know is that some people, they like to party. Some people just like to hang out. It varies again from person to person. So, um, it just varies from person to person. I know that some people in the subculture, for a joke, they'll dress like a normal person for fun during Halloween. But others, this is their time to go all out. I mean, for a lot of people in the goth subculture, Halloween is like Christmas. And when they start to hear the Halloween decorations come out, that's when they start going out here and really going shopping. Because I used to see a lot of shopping haul videos from people going to places like Michael's, and where they have a lot of the Halloween stuff. Target. I mean, if you go around August, September, October, that's like the goth Christmas, because that's when all the spooky stuff comes out. And November 1st is a fun day for people, for us darkly inclined and people in the subculture, because that's when we get all the fun Halloween stuff 50% off. I mean, you can just clean up, and that's how you get your decorations. That's how you get a lot of the stuff that people decorate their house with for the year. They buy it around August, September, and October. Excuse me. And so, Benny, what is Wiccan? Wiccan is witchcraft. It is the whole idea of buying into the old concepts of witchcraft. So that's what Wiccan is. And some people in the scene do practice Wicca and witchcraft. And again, that varies from person to person. And it's not what everybody does, but some people want to promote that stereotype as a social norm. But in actuality, it is something that is something only a small group of people in the subculture do, but people want to push it as one of the things that are mainstream, one of the stereotypes. Maybe that should be a live stream I do, called Stereotypes in the Goth Subculture. That's something that I would love to do as a live stream. Maybe I should do that for the next live stream. About the next goth live stream is Stereotypes in the Goth Subculture. I had another one I wanted to do in addition to what was it? I wanted to do, and I had planned it in addition to this Undercover Goth one. I wanted to do another one that I wanted to do, but I might have to do that Stereotypes in the Goth Subculture. And I really wish I could do that as a Google Hangout with a couple of other goths. I think that one would be a fun discussion for us to have, where all of us come together and start talking about these stereotypes and ways to break these stereotypes. Luciano, goths listen to all types of music. So when it comes down to goths, it varies from person to person. I don't know. It depends on the person again, what type of music they listen to. Some people like emo, some people like rock, some people like hip hop, some people like R&B. So it varies from person to person, what kind of music they listen to. And you would have to just sit down and talk to different people to get a inkling of what they are listening to. But it just isn't, goths just don't listen to goth music, and goth music is a variety of different types of music. I mean, there's new wave, cold wave, industrial, EBM. So there's a whole host of musical genres, but a lot of people just think of the traditional bands, but there's a whole host of varieties of music, and you can go to different channels to learn about that music. Like Amy Networkgeek's channel, she goes in depth talking about the varieties of different musics that people in the subculture listen to, and she goes more on the industrial side. But there are others who talk about the different types of goth music, and the only music I know that most goths hate is this whole witch house thing. But that one I can't even stand listening to, because it's just it's like witch house. It just makes my stomach turn just thinking about this witch house music. But most other goth music, it varies from person to person. Okay. So, got about 6 more minutes. I'm going to get ready to wrap the stream up, because I got to get back to work on Eternal Night. And that, again, is a vampire story. And this one is going to be set in the SJS Direct universe, and this one, it ties into Isis Night of the Vampires, and it also ties into Legendary Mad Matilda. Luciano, a good book to get introduced into the scene would be Gillian Venter's Gothic Charm School. And I think Voltaire did a book a while back. It might be out of print, but Gillian Venter's Gothic Charm School is a good one to get to learn a bit more about the scene. And there's a couple other ones out there. That one's more of an encyclopedia, Gothic Charm School. So that one is a good one to get started with. And there's a couple more. I don't really remember many of them, but they're out there. So that's it. That's what a lot of people they need to learn. That's a great book to get started with. And I read a couple of pages from that one. Wow. You learned from Eminem, Dwayne? I didn't know that people could learn about the subculture from Eminem. I mean, I got my experience from Beetlejuice and Lydia Dietz. That was my first exposure. And I went from there. But everybody comes in from different things. And I wouldn't have thought that Eminem would have been one of them. But that's interesting. Which Eminem songs got you into the subculture? Because I grew up in the 80s with horror movies. I grew up with oh wow. Well, I was an outsider myself, so I know what that is. I never really fit in with everybody, so that's another thing that. So that's what wow. But that's not, well, again, I came in with Lydia Dietz, so my view is very different. So I came in with a lot of Lydia Dietz. I came in with a lot of horror movies. I came in with a lot of stuff like that, things like that. That's what I came into. So, Luciano, I don't know why a lot of people who are bullied and marginalized are goth, but again, it comes from that heart that you come from a different perspective, a different view of the world, a different perception of the world. And that's why people are drawn to the subculture, because they already have this different view of the world, this different perception of the world. And the bullying is because people are coming after you because you have a different view of the world, a different perception of the world. It doesn't, and these people don't understand it. And when it comes down to people who don't understand you, they try to destroy you because you don't, fit into their world. And if what they don't understand, they go out here and try to destroy. So that's why a lot of kids get bullied. And just like I said in Spellbound, Matilda was getting bullied before she became a goth, and it was all again because she had a different view and a different perception, and it was who she was on the inside. What's going on, Rob IS? Glad to see you here at the stream. Again, we're talking about undercover goths and the reasons why people go undercover in the scene and why they are uncomfortable in expressing their darkness. And that's the topic for tonight, because again, a lot of kids out there, they are a part of the subculture, or they want to be a part of the subculture. So they oftentimes they're not dressing up in black, or because they have things in their life that prevent them from doing so. But that's not what makes them goth, is the way they dress. It is their heart, and it is who they are on the inside. And that's something that I want people to understand, that yeah, people sometimes they may be a part of the scene, or they may want to be a part of the scene, but the way they're dressed they shouldn't be judged by the way they're dressed, because they can't, sometimes they just can't do it. And this is something that a lot of people, they would sit there and think, oh, that person's, they're not goth, but they are. And again, it's because they are just trying, some people are in different stages of their life. I wouldn't know, Rob, if a lot of goths are MGTOW. Again, it depends on the person. Some people are happy in their relationships. I've seen a lot of goths out here who have long-term relationships, and then I've seen some who are single, and then there are some who are just going their own way and chill. And again, it varies from person to person. So oh, it's good to know that the goth scene in Chicago is still going, because a lot of people, they were trying to say that goth is dead, but as I see it, goth isn't dead. Again, goth is about the people, and it's the people who create the music, and it's the people who keep the scene alive. So goth is alive, can live based on the people. And thank you, Eva, for the donation to the Cash App. Really appreciate that. Um, but it's the people. Yeah, it's far from dead, because there are just so many people who want to be a part of the scene. There are so many people who want to learn about the scene. And from what I've seen on YouTube, there are so many people who are eager to learn about the scene. And it's all about us getting that word out and letting people know about the scene, and knowing that there's support for the scene. And that's true, Luciano. When it comes down to the goth subculture, there's a lot of support, and a lot of people work together. And that's one of the positive things about the scene, is that people work together to support each other. They work together. And one of the great things you see is that people work together regardless of race or gender or sexual orientation. I mean, people in the scene, there's a lot of love there, a lot of heart there. And people will come together because they love the scene, and they love it so much, and they want to protect it, and they want the people to come into it, and they want people to see what's great about it. They don't want it turned into a stereotype. And that's one of the things that, oh, that's the topic I want to talk about, Rob, next time. Simping in the goth subculture. That was the other subject I want to talk about. Thank you for telling me about the beta males in the subculture, because another goth I met on YouTube, he bought one of my books, Misadventures of Captain Save-A-Ho, and he said he learned a lot from it. And that's why I want to do simping in the subculture, because there were so many guys out there who become victims of predatory women in the goth subculture. And I had another guy tell me about how he got played by a predatory woman. So that's another topic I definitely want to do, is simping in the goth subculture, because I believe that's a topic that a lot of goth guys can really learn something from, because a lot of guys out there, they get caught up in a woman's aesthetic and her looks, because guys are primarily visual. So that's one that I really definitely believe a lot of goths out here can learn from. So that's one that I definitely want to discuss, because again, I know a lot of guys who are introverts, a lot of guys, they don't have that male life experience, they don't have the male life skills, and they definitely could learn from a discussion of simping in the goth subculture. So that one is one that you guys can pencil the date on. I'm definitely going to do that live stream for all you guys in the scene, because you guys, from what I've been hearing, need some type of men's issues topics out here, because a lot of times we look at the women of the goth subculture, but we really need to start focusing on the men and helping them, develop those male life skills. Now, Luciano, I don't recommend people join the goth subculture, because if they're suffering, it's, again, people come into the goth subculture because they have dark views, dark perceptions of the world, and they don't come here because they're suffering from discrimination. Again, it's about your perception of self and who you are. It's not about trying to escape something, because when you come into the subculture, you're going to get more suffering, more torment, more things, because you have a different look and you are presenting different viewpoints. And the people who are bullying you, harassing you, and discriminating against you, their rhetoric is going to ratchet up when they see you being different, not go down. And that's why, again, people go undercover instead of trying to express themselves. So things are going to get worse rather than go out here and get better. Rob, I knew that there were some simps. I mean, guys have been telling me about this, and they've also talked. I didn't know there were so many male feminists out there. And again, if you're a male feminist, that's not a good place to be. I mean, a lot of goth guys, they really need to get some schooling if they're out here being male feminists, because that's gonna mess them up. Rob, I did see the Coach Red Pill video about what is the red pill, and he went in depth, very eloquently about what the red pill was, and it was a very good video. I have to agree with you. It was one of the best videos I've seen on the red pill, because the red pill allows you to see what is reality, and then after you see what's reality, you can then set a course for yourself. Glad to see you here, Daryl Phil, I Phil. Luciano, I haven't been to a goth convention. I did get an offer to go to one from a lady on Facebook, but I don't know if I can get there yet, because just my schedule is a little messy right now. She offered for me to go to one this summer, but it's in New Jersey, and I'm still on the fence about what I want to do, because I still have to finish Eternal Night. I'm still trying to get, my groove on that book. I finally finished ISIS, the main event, the first draft, and I'm doing the editing on that right now, along with John Haynes, The Man with Nothing to Lose. I contacted an artist about the cover, and I'm going to see when Mike Williams is going to be available to do the other cover, because I want to do two covers for The Man with Nothing to Lose. And I'm right in the middle of Eternal Night, and I'm still trying to figure out what the E-Steam story is going to be this year. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what type of story I'm going to do. I might want to go back to Witches of Eastland, which was the E-Steam series story where she took on 3 witches. So it's up in the air. Again, I do a lot of dark fiction and darkly inclined fiction. Things like, in addition to the Spinsterella trilogy, I do darkly inclined fiction like The Temptation of John Haynes, which is the foundation of the SJS Direct universe. And this is a story where I got a lot of dark visuals, and dark aesthetics. I also do stories like the John Haynes Dark Succubus, which came out last month. This story where the man who rules the world takes on a sultry succubus. And a lot of people compare John Haynes to John Constantine, the DC Vertigo book that came out many years ago, and they say it's just as good as Constantine. So I'm a darkly inclined guy, and I do a lot of different darkly inclined stories and different darkly inclined concepts. And I talk about the goth subculture also in the first John Haynes book, John Haynes, A Conversation with Death. That one's a bestseller, but that one I talk about the goth subculture, because he goes to a goth coffee house to have a conversation with death. Yeah, that's true, Rob. When it comes down to red pill guys, they go for the truth, they go for the facts, and they go where the facts are presented. It's not about the left wing or the right wing. It's just about the presentation of the facts. And again, I see people in the goth subculture, there's a lot of red pill stuff there, because they often go where the facts are, and they go where things are presented, where the truth is. Because a lot of people in the subculture, I believe that the subculture has some blue pill guys out here. The whole foundation of it is being outside of the mainstream and being against the establishment And again, those are red pill concepts. The subculture was founded on things that are dark are about seeing the truth about things and seeing the reality of things. Yeah. I don't know if the goth subculture can help with self-awareness. That's something everybody has to do because there are blue pill goths out there, just like Rob IS has told you. There are a lot of blue pill guys out there, but self-awareness is something you have to do, and it's something you have to grow into. So these are things that you have to go out here, and you're going to have to learn on your own. So the goth subculture can't help you with that. That's something that you have to come and discover on your own, because just like Rob has told everybody, there's a lot of blue pill guys out here. There's a lot of male feminists, and a male feminist is a blue pill guy, and a blue pill guy is still in the matrix. But a lot of people who are part of the subculture, they are outside. They are a red pill, and they do see the dark reality that is there. And that's again part of the darkness, is seeing the truth, which is the light. And it's that light that allows you to go out here and set a course for yourself and your life. So it's 11:40. I'm going to get ready to wrap up this stream. I want to thank everybody for coming out to the stream, and I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to me talk about Undercover Goths. And if you are an undercover goth, it's not something to feel bad about. Everybody understands that you are in a place in your life where maybe you cannot express yourself the way you want to express yourself, and your love for the subculture is not anything less than if you cannot go out here and dress in all black, or go out here and buy designer goth clothes, or go out here and put on these full goth outfits every day. Everybody understands that you can't do that every day, and it doesn't make you less of a goth, because what makes you a goth is in your heart, and it is your perception, it is your beliefs and perceptions of the world that make you goth. Nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. So sometimes you can't put on the clothes to express yourself just yet, and maybe in time you'll be able to, because again, I know that so many kids out there, they are in a family situation where they can't do it, and some people are in a financial situation where they can't go out here and buy expensive goth clothes. But it doesn't make you less of a goth if you can't, and sometimes you can't do it on your job, but you are still a goth at heart, and you can still go out here and find ways to express your darkness, and you can express your darkness in ways that are positive, and that's something you have to be able to do on your own time and your own terms, and that is something that you guys have to learn how to do. I mean, going undercover is something that everybody has to do for their survival. It's something they have to do to make that living, in order to make that money. And it doesn't make you less of a goth for doing that. So everybody needs to understand why people are going undercover. And they're going undercover, again, for their reasons, and you have to respect their reasons. It doesn't make you less of a goth if you're going undercover, because your love for the music, your love for the things that are dark, those are the things that make you a goth. And you can be a goth wearing khakis and still love your music. And sometimes the guys have to do that again, because they want to be able to pay their bills. They want to be able to make a living. And it's something that everybody needs to get a better understanding of. And I hope that this live stream has given you a better understanding of the reasons why people go undercover and don't express themselves fully in the goth subculture. Some of the baby backs, some of the working class goths, some of the corporate goths. I hope you get a better understanding of why they are going undercover, and I hope you understand that they're out here, and not everybody who doesn't dress goth isn't everybody who not everybody who isn't dressing goth is goth. I mean, not everybody. Well, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to say, but not everybody out here who you think isn't goth is I'm getting mixed up here, but I don't know about that, Luciano. That's a subject I don't know anything about, but I know I want to do simping in the goth subculture, and that'll be probably the next one soon. But when it comes down to Undercover Goths again, this is something that it's something that I want to encourage kids to not feel bad about, because sometimes you have to you're not in that station in life, and the whole thing is you can work to get to that station in life where you can feel comfortable about expressing yourself and expressing your darkness, and you can go out here and put on the outfits that you want. And that's something you have to work towards, and you should aspire to work towards, because that's something that's going to allow you to be the person you want to be and actualize your potential to be that person you want to be. And if you want to learn more about the Matilda Crowley character and her journey into the goth subculture, you can pick up Spellbound, which shows you Matilda's baby back years in paperback and Kindle. You can pick up Matilda's journey in college and into her first job at Amalgamated Consolidated in Legendary Man Matilda. And you can look at Matilda's elder goth years in Spinsterella. I hope you guys, and if you want to pick up the other darkly inclined fiction I did, like The Temptation of John Haynes or John Haynes' Dark Succubus, you can also pick them up on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle formats. And I hope you'll be here for next week's live stream. And I want to thank everybody again for coming out to the live stream. And I hope you'll be there for next week's stream.